You ever notice how a man can swear on his life he's not looking, yet his pupils give him away faster than a kid caught with chocolate all over his face? That's the thing about the stolen glance. It's practically a reflex. He doesn't plan it, he doesn't even realize he's doing it half the time. You could be mid-sentence, telling him something completely unrelated, and his eyes will make this split-second detour, almost like they have their own GPS system. It's not always some grand, deliberate move. Sometimes it's the tiniest flicker of attention, so quick you'd miss it if you weren't watching closely. But here's the secret. He knows exactly how risky it is. In that one tiny movement, he's playing a whole mental game. Can I look without getting caught? How fast can I look and still remember what she just said? Will she notice the corner of my mouth twitch when I do? The funniest part, he thinks he's smooth. He truly believes his "I'm just listening attentively" face is foolproof. But women have this superpower. You can feel when someone's gaze drops, even for half a second. You don't even have to break eye contact to know it happened, and yet, in his mind, he's nailed the art of stealth. That's where the thrill comes from. The stolen glance isn't just about curiosity, it's about the rush of almost getting caught. It's the little adrenaline hit that says, "Sai looked, and you didn't call me out, or maybe you did," and that's even more exciting. But here's what makes it so fascinating. This isn't necessarily about disrespect or some uncontrollable hunger. It's about appreciation. Think about it. The stolen glance is often paired with a small smile or a shift in energy. That's because in his head, that moment is a tiny spark. He's not just seeing you, he's remembering you. It's like his brain takes a screenshot for later, and in that fraction of a second, you've become the highlight of his day. It's unspoken, but it's powerful. There's also this cat and mouse element to it. Men know deep down that you know. And sometimes they're hoping you'll catch them, because that little moment of locking eyes right after is electric. You don't need words. That half smile you give him is enough to make him wonder if you're flattered, annoyed, or just amused by how predictable he is. And that mystery, it keeps him coming back for another glance, even if it's at his own peril. What most women don't realize is that the stolen glance is his way of keeping that spark alive in everyday life. You could be in the middle of a grocery store aisle, comparing cereal brands, and there it is. That flick of his eyes, that pause. He's not thinking about cornflakes anymore. In that moment, the mundane fades, and you become the center of his attention without even trying. And because it's fleeting, it feels almost precious, like he's holding on to a little secret only he gets to enjoy. So, when you catch it, when you see the quick dart of his gaze, understand it's not always just a surface-level thing. Sometimes it's his quiet way of saying, "I still find you magnetic. I still notice you, and I don't want to stop." It's the smallest, most human kind of flirting, the kind that doesn't need a grand gesture, just a second of connection stolen and savored. There's this part men don't talk about much, mostly because it doesn't sound as bold or cheeky as people might expect, but it's just as real, the comfort factor. For all the playful, teasing thoughts they might have, there's also something deeply soothing about the presence of your chest. It's not always about sex or fantasy. Sometimes it's almost instinctive, the same way you might curl up under a blanket on a rainy afternoon. There's a kind of safety there that's hard to explain without sounding sentimental, but it's true. When a man rests his head against you, he's not just enjoying the physical closeness, he's feeling grounded, calmed, like the world outside can wait for a bit. It's in those moments when you're not dressed up, not posing, not performing. Maybe you're in an oversized hoodie. Maybe you're half asleep watching something on the couch, and he's just there leaning into you. That's not about lust. That's about finding a pocket of peace in a life that can be full of noise. Sometimes men are not looking for excitement, They're looking for that exhale, the one you only take when you feel completely at ease. And for some reason, your chest becomes that safe space without you even realizing it. Now, they'll rarely admit this outright because it sounds too vulnerable, too soft. Men are supposed to want you in this constant, fiery way, right? But here's the truth. Even the most confident man has days where what he craves most isn't heat, it's warmth. Not the kind that burns, but the kind that melts tension away. Your body, your scent, your heartbeat, all of it works like a quiet lullaby. It's a reminder that he's home, not just in the physical sense, but in the emotional one too. And yes, this comfort factor often blurs the lines with intimacy, because closeness naturally invites desire, but it's a different kind of desire. It's slower, more tender. It's not about taking, it's about staying. That's why some of the moments that mean the most to him aren't the flashy ones. They're the ones where you're just lying together, breathing in sync, his arm lazily draped over you, not needing to talk. He's not thinking about impressing you in those moments. He's thinking about how safe it feels to just be next to you without a single performance. The funny thing is, this comfort factor often sneaks in during ordinary routines. Maybe you're reading, maybe you're scrolling on your phone, and he casually leans in, rests a hand, or lays his head there. He might pretend it's nothing, that it's just where he happened to land, but inside, he's holding on to that moment like it's medicine. And it is, in its own way. It's the antidote to stress, to loneliness, to the constant pressure of the outside world. Sometimes when you move away too quickly, he feels the loss more than he'll ever admit. Not because you've taken away something thrilling, but because you've taken away that moment of calm. And deep down, he knows that kind of comfort is rare. It's not something you can fake or force. It's something your presence naturally gives him. And if you notice closely, you'll see that after he's had that moment, he's lighter, more relaxed, maybe even smiling without knowing why. Because to him, it wasn't just leaning on you. It was leaning on the one place in the world that makes him feel completely at ease. Here's the thing most women underestimate. A man's imagination can be a whole amusement park when it comes to your body, especially your chest. You might think he's just noticing you in the moment, but the truth is his mind doesn't stop there. He takes mental snapshots, tiny flashes from everyday life. Maybe the way your shirt shifted when you leaned forward. Maybe the silhouette he caught when the light hit just right. And later, those little details start playing on a loop in his head. It's not that he sits down and consciously says, "All right, time to imagine her again." It's more like those images slip in uninvited, and before he knows it, he's replaying them in all sorts of scenarios. And here's the real secret. Those scenarios are not always realistic. In fact, they rarely are. His imagination doesn't follow the rules of physics, timing, or location. You could be talking about work deadlines 1 minute, and the next, he's imagining you in a completely different setting, wearing something entirely different, doing something you're definitely not doing right now. It's not about replacing reality. It's about expanding it. In his mind, there's no harm in building little what-if worlds, because they're just for him. They're private, untouchable, and honestly, they make him feel more connected to you, even when you're not around. What's funny is that sometimes these thoughts are triggered by the most random things. A certain perfume, the texture of a sweater, the way you absent-mindedly adjust your hair. These small, ordinary gestures can set off a chain reaction in his head. And once it starts, it's almost impossible to stop because the brain loves replaying things that made it light up the first time. He's not just seeing your boobs in his mind. He's attaching a whole mood to the image, a feeling. Maybe it's playful, maybe it's intense, maybe it's soft and slow. That's why it sticks. Now, a lot of women might assume that men only think visually, but that's not entirely true. Yes, the visual spark is huge, but the imagination mixes in sound, tone, even the way you look at him. It's the combination that keeps him coming back to the thought. That's also why certain moments seem to live rent-free in his head for weeks. He might not even tell you which ones they are, partly because he enjoys having that little secret, and partly because it's his way of holding something sacred between the two of you, even if you didn't know it happened. Sometimes he'll be sitting across from you, smiling to himself, and you might think he's just in a good mood. But in reality, he's halfway lost in a replay of something you did 3 days ago that he's mentally dressed up into a whole new story. And here's where it gets interesting. These daydreams can make him look at you differently in the moment. They add this subtle layer of attraction that builds over time, so when he touches you later, it's not just about now, it's about every little scene he's been holding in his mind since the last time. And while he might never admit just how often his thoughts wander there, you'll feel it in the way his energy shifts. The way he lingers when you pass by. The way he looks like he's about to say something but changes his mind. That's the imagination at work. A private little cinema where you're the only star and the ticket's been paid for long before the lights even dim. Men notice details far more than they'll ever openly admit. And when it comes to your boobs, that curiosity goes deeper than you think. It's not just about size though, that's the most obvious thing people assume. It's about shape, proportion, the way they move when you walk. The subtle changes depending on what you wear. He's not sitting there with a clipboard taking measurements, but his brain automatically stores these details, like little files he can pull up later. And here's the funny part, he'll never ask outright about them, because that would make it too obvious. Instead, he'll observe, compare, and quietly form his own little catalog over time. Part of this curiosity comes from the fact that, for most men, boobs have always been surrounded by a sense of mystery. Unlike your face, which is always on display, your chest exists in this in-between space, sometimes visible, sometimes concealed, always changing depending on the situation. That changeability keeps his attention hooked. He might notice how different you look in a fitted dress compared to a loose sweater, or how certain tops make him second. Guess what he thought he knew about your shape. It's not about judgment, it's about fascination. And it's not just about you. Men, consciously or not, compare what they see to other mental references. Not in a cold checklist way, but more like, wow, hers look different in this way, I wonder why. It's human nature to compare, and for him, each woman's chest is its own unique set of traits. That's why, even if he's been with you for years, he'll still find himself noticing small changes. Maybe it's the lighting, maybe it's the angle, maybe it's simply that you moved in a way he hasn't seen before. Each new observation is like adding a fresh page to an already well-read book. Here's where the curiosity becomes even more layered. He's aware that there's so much he doesn't know. How do they feel at different times of day? Do they change depending on your mood, your cycle, your choice of bra? He probably won't ask these questions, but they float in the background of his mind, creating this low-level intrigue that never really goes away. And every time he gets a little new information, whether it's from a moment of intimacy or just a casual hug, it feels like he's uncovered a small, secret truth. This attention to detail also plays into how he sees you overall. Your boobs aren't just a body part to him. They're part of your unique physical signature. He associates their look, their feel, even their presence with you specifically. That's why if he's away from you for a while, he might remember them almost like someone would remember a favorite scent. Not in exact terms, but in the feeling they bring. That's the power of paying attention on such a small scale. It creates lasting imprints. And yet, for all this noticing, he might never breathe a word about it. Not because he's indifferent, but because saying too much could ruin the quiet pleasure of just observing. It's like watching a sunset. You don't need to analyze it out loud to appreciate it. In fact, sometimes the mystery is part of the magic. And so he'll keep his little observations tucked away, smiling to himself when you turn, move, or lean in just so, because in those moments, he's reminded that no matter how much he's seen, there's always something new to notice. Not every thought a man has about your boobs is drenched in lust. Sometimes it's just pure playfulness. There's a lighter, cheekier side to it that doesn't get talked about enough, mostly because people assume men are always thinking in one direction. But the truth is, your chest can be a source of fun in the same way inside jokes are. Something only the two of you share, something that makes the relationship feel more alive. He might give you a gentle poke when you're teasing him, rest his hand there for no reason other than it makes him feel connected, or make some silly, borderline ridiculous comment just to see you roll your eyes and laugh. This playful side usually shows up when he feels comfortable with you, when the attraction is already secure and the two of you can afford to be silly without it turning into anything serious. It's not about crossing boundaries or being crude. It's about adding a spark of humor into something that's often treated as overly serious or purely sexual. In his mind, the fact that he can play like that means there's a deeper level of trust between you. You've given him permission through your connection to treat that part of you not just as something to desire, but as something to engage with in a like-hearted way. There's also a kind of boyish energy behind it. Sometimes men never quite lose that teenage awe of boobs, and the playfulness is a way of keeping that feeling alive without turning it into something heavy. He might nudge you with his shoulder and grin, or rest his head there while making some exaggerated, mock dramatic sigh like he's just found heaven. These moments aren't meant to seduce you. They're meant to make you laugh, to remind you that even in a long-term relationship, there's still room for a bit of cheeky fun. The best part is that this playfulness often happens in the least glamorous settings. Maybe you're brushing your teeth, folding laundry, or standing in the kitchen making coffee, and he comes up behind you with some goofy move that makes you shake your head. Those moments might seem small, but they keep the energy between you from getting stale. They remind both of you that attraction doesn't always have to be intense or carefully staged. Sometimes it can be light, spontaneous, and full of warmth. And here's the secret. That playfulness can actually strengthen the bond between you more than constant, serious flirtation. When he knows he can make you laugh, that you'll roll with it. Instead of shutting him down, he feels closer to you. He's not just appreciating you physically, he's enjoying the relationship in a way that makes him want to keep showing up, keep engaging, keep finding new ways to make you smile. In a way, this side of things is a quiet sign of security. If he can be silly with you about something that's often seen as off-limits or ultra-serious, it means he trusts that you won't misunderstand his intentions. And for you, it can be a reminder that attraction doesn't have to be rigid to be real. Sometimes the quickest way to feel desired is to feel comfortable being yourself, knowing that even in the middle of a playful moment, the underlying chemistry hasn't gone anywhere. In fact, it might be stronger than ever. Here's something most men won't admit out loud. As much as they enjoy your boobs, there's often a layer of insecurity underneath that attraction. It's not the kind of insecurity you'd spot right away, because men are good at masking it with confidence, jokes, or distraction. But deep down, he sometimes wonders if he's giving you the right kind of attention, if he's looking too much or not enough, if you actually like the way he touches you, or if he's missing some invisible line you've drawn. For him, your chest is both irresistible and slightly intimidating, because it's such a personal, sensitive part of you. This is why sometimes, even in moments of intimacy, he'll hesitate just a fraction longer than you expect. He's checking himself. He's making sure he's reading you right. Men know that while desire is exciting, it can also be fragile. One wrong move can take the energy from electric to awkward. So he overthinks just a little, because he doesn't want to ruin the moment or make you feel uncomfortable. In his head, there's a quiet dialogue. Am I making her feel beautiful? Or am I making her feel like I'm only focused on this? Is she enjoying this as much as I am? Or is she just letting it happen? These questions aren't about doubt in you. They're about his own need to measure up. Men like to feel that they're not only wanted, but that they're doing things right, that their presence is adding to your experience, not taking away from it. And when it comes to something as charged as your chest, the stakes feel even higher. He doesn't want to be clumsy. He doesn't want to be predictable. And he definitely doesn't want you to feel like he's objectifying you without seeing the rest of you. Sometimes this insecurity shows up in more subtle ways. Maybe he tries to downplay his attraction, acting casual so you won't think he's obsessed, or he'll act like he wasn't even looking, even though you caught him, because he's afraid admitting it too openly will make you feel uneasy. And then there are moments where he'll lavish attention on you, but afterwards, he'll quietly scan your reaction, looking for signs of whether he did it right. You might not notice it, but he's always reading you, always adjusting. This hidden vulnerability is actually a good thing. Even if he'd never frame it that way, it means he cares about your comfort and your perception of him. It means he's not just running on autopilot. He's thinking, learning, wanting to match your energy. And ironically, the moments where he's most unsure can often be the moments where he's most present, because he's paying close attention to every little cue you give him. The truth is, your boobs aren't just a visual for him, they're an experience. And like any experience he values, he wants to get it right. That's why sometimes when you give him a clear sign of approval, a smile, a laugh, a little sound that tells him you're happy, you'll see a shift in him. He relaxes. He becomes more confident. That quiet little knot of uncertainty unwinds, and suddenly he's not overthinking anymore. He's just enjoying being there with you. And maybe that's the most telling part of all. Beneath the playful looks, the teasing, the curiosity, and the imagination, there's a man who wants to be sure he's making you feel as good as you make him feel. That insecurity, it's not weakness. It's proof that he's invested.